Have you ever gone no contact with someone who has an avoidant attachment style, only to find yourself spiraling with questions like, do they even miss me? Did they ever care? Or will they come back? If so, take a deep breath, because this video will walk you through exactly what happens inside the mind of an avoidant when you go silent. And it's probably not what you think. I'm Jim Rohn, and I help people untangle confusing relationship dynamics by using the lens of attachment science and emotionally grounded communication. Today, we're going straight into one of the most emotionally triggering and misunderstood phases in any connection with an avoidant partner: the space after no contact. Maybe you've been told, just walk away and they'll come running, or that pulling back will somehow flip a switch in them. But if you've tried that and still felt anxious, defeated, or stuck in an endless loop of overanalyzing their silence, you're not alone, and you're not crazy. The truth is, no contact with an avoidant doesn't always lead to the reunion fantasy that so many people secretly hope for, but it does reveal something even more valuable: the reality of how avoidant attachment operates under pressure, and how you can respond from a place of secure, self-respecting clarity instead of confusion or desperation. In this video, I'm going to break down the internal emotional sequence that often happens for avoidantly attached people during no contact. Why their withdrawal isn't always indifference, what it actually means when they stay silent, and how a securely attached person would respond without chasing, overthinking, or abandoning themselves in the process. So if you've ever felt like you're the only one who cares, like you're walking on eggshells or constantly waiting for crumbs of connection, this is for you. Go ahead and hit subscribe, because what you're about to learn can shift not only how you navigate this relationship, but how you show up in every relationship going forward. When you break up with someone who leans avoidant, it's like you're living in two completely different realities. While your emotions might be flooding in all at once, intense, raw, overwhelming, the avoidant seems almost too fine. You're spiraling and they're silent. You're in survival mode and they're posting memes or going on hikes. But what if I told you that what you're seeing on the surface is not the full picture? And that if you stick around to the end of this video, you'll understand why avoidants don't react right away and what happens when the emotional bill finally comes due. See, avoidant individuals have a habit of shoving their emotions down into a mental closet. They're not processing the breakup right after it happens. They're doing what they've always done, disconnecting to feel in control. But here's the part nobody tells you. Just because it looks like they don't care doesn't mean they're not impacted. There's just a delay. It's like emotional jet lag. So in the first week or two of no contact, nothing much happens on their end. They've built a wall and hidden behind it. And yet, while you're doing your inner work, maybe journaling, going to therapy, reconnecting with friends, something starts to shift. Your emotional curve slowly begins to rise. And that's exactly when theirs starts to dip. The curves cross, the timing is rarely aligned, and that misalignment is where so much unnecessary heartbreak happens. Because you start to feel better just as they start to feel the weight of losing you. But here's the kicker: they'll rarely admit it. Even if they miss you, even if they're hurting, avoidants tend to double down on distance. So don't be fooled by the silence. Don't mistake their delay for indifference. It's just their wiring. If this is hitting home right now, drop a comment and tell me where you're at in the no contact phase. Have you felt that shift yet, or are you still in the thick of it? I read every comment, and I'll reply with guidance where I can, because healing from an avoidant breakup isn't about playing games. It's about finally choosing you. When a breakup happens with an avoidantly attached person, the first thing they often feel isn't heartbreak, it's relief. Not because they didn't care, but because space is their coping mechanism. They don't need emotional closeness to feel okay. In fact, closeness often overwhelms them. So when the breakup gives them room to breathe, they lean into it. Finally, I can be alone again, is the unspoken thought that often echoes in their mind. And if you're someone who leans anxious or even secure, this can feel like a slap in the face, because your emotional response is happening in real time while theirs is still buried under layers of mental armor. That's why so many anxious, avoidant relationships get stuck in a loop of breaking up and getting back together. The avoidant needs distance to feel safe. The anxious partner needs connection to feel safe. But the two never quite learn how to meet in the middle, so the cycle repeats. Here's where it gets really interesting. At some point, usually after the initial relief wears off, the avoidant begins to reflect. It might start as a quiet concern. I hope they're not angry at me. That moment right there is key, because it's not about indifference, it's about timing. Avoidants do care, but because they process emotions later, it can feel like they don't care at all. That's the illusion. And here's where you flip the script. See, they expect you to fall apart, to chase, to send the long emotional texts. That's the version of you they're used to. So when you don't do that, when you hold your silence, work on your healing, stay grounded in your worth, it throws them off. Suddenly, the narrative they built about you being too emotional, too needy, too much, doesn't hold up. They start to doubt their assumptions. Wait, maybe I was wrong about them. That inner dissonance? That's the beginning of their discomfort, and this is the part most people don't understand. Avoidants live in the tension between two fears, fear of losing you and fear of getting close to you. And until they face that second fear, until they choose intimacy over avoidance, they won't be able to offer you the depth, commitment, and emotional availability you truly deserve. Here's what most people don't understand when they're dealing with an avoidant ex. It's not just about giving them space. It's about creating a secure foundation within yourself first. That's the piece no one talks about. Before you can ever have the right conversation or even think about reconnection, you have to step out of what I call the danger zone, the emotional minefield where your triggers run the show and your identity is hanging on their response. That zone? That's the place where anxious and avoidant dynamics feed off each other, cycling through breakups, makeups, and endless confusion. So what do you do instead? You build a base. You start modeling the kind of behavior you want to live by. Clarity, calm, emotional self-respect. That's how you set the tone for the relationship you deserve, not the one you're trying to control. And here's where it gets really real. If you're anxiously attached, your urge is probably to fix things fast, to resolve the pain now. But pause. That instinct, while deeply human, is the very thing that keeps the pattern alive. Your nervous system wants reassurance, but growth looks like giving that to yourself first, before you reach out, before you chase, before you lose yourself trying to win someone back. And here's the twist that most people never see coming. When you don't reach out, when you sit in your own power and hold the silence, that's when the avoidant starts to feel the shift. At first they think they're fine. They're even relieved. I'm free again, they tell themselves. But as time goes on, and your silence stays steady, their emotional system, which is usually so good at shutting things down, starts to glitch. That space they thought they wanted suddenly feels too quiet. Their thoughts become unsettled. Why haven't I heard from them? Creeps in. Not in a panicked, anxious way, but in this low hum of dissonance they can't shake. And that discomfort? It's not just about you, it's about them questioning everything they've been running from. Connection, vulnerability, and the truth that maybe, just maybe, the one person they thought would always come back actually won't. And that, my friend, is when the power dynamic shifts. It's one of the strangest patterns I see, but it shows up over and over again. The moment you genuinely let go, when you've stopped obsessing, stopped waiting, maybe even started dating again, not to provoke a reaction, but because you've actually begun to move forward, that's when the avoidant often comes back around. And no, I'm not talking about some mystical law of attraction or trying to manifest someone into chasing you. I'm talking about a very real psychological shift. Because when you finally stop orienting your life around them, the emotional energy changes. They can feel it, even if they don't fully understand it. Suddenly, they're not in control of the dynamic anymore. You're no longer emotionally available on demand, and that gets their attention. But here's the trap. Just because they come back doesn't mean they're ready. Avoidants often return not out of clarity but out of discomfort, missing your presence, fearing regret, wanting reassurance. That's not the same as choosing you in a grounded, committed way. And this is where you have to be brutally honest with yourself. Are they just responding to the loss of comfort, or are they truly ready to meet you emotionally? That's why the secure foundation you've built during no contact matters so much. Because if and when they do reach out, often around the 2 to 3 month mark, you need to be centered enough not to lose yourself again. In the early days after a breakup, their internal script goes something like, "Finally, freedom, no obligations." There's a lightness to it, but by week 2 or 3, there's a subtle curiosity creeping in, checking your Instagram stories, asking mutual friends what you're up to. That's not love, it's awareness. And then, as more time passes, say 6 to 8 weeks, nostalgia kicks in, they start remembering the connection, second-guessing the breakup. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just an ache they can't place. But the real turning point tends to come closer to 3 months when the emotional avoidance stops working and the consequences of disconnection become real. That's when they often realize, wait, this might be permanent. Now, this isn't a script that fits every single avoidant person, but it's a very common emotional timeline I've seen play out. The key takeaway? You can't control if or when they come back. What you can control is the emotional stability you bring to the table if they do. So what do you do with all of this? When you understand the avoidance emotional timeline and see that their distance isn't always about you, it's a response to their own wiring, the next step is to stop waiting and start reclaiming your emotional space. And that starts with one key mindset shift. Stop performing for their return. Your healing cannot be another strategy to get them back. It has to be for you. Because when you heal for them, your growth is still tied to their behavior. But when you heal for yourself, you take the power back. And that's when your energy changes, subtly but unmistakably. You're no longer chasing, you're choosing. You're no longer hoping they'll come back and do the work. You're asking, are they even capable of showing up for real intimacy? And if the answer is no, you're finally strong enough to walk away from breadcrumb. This is where the concept of a secure base becomes more than just a buzzword. It means creating an emotional environment, both internally and relationally, where your needs aren't minimized or pathologized, where your desire for closeness doesn't make you too much. It means setting boundaries not to punish them, but to protect yourself from self-abandonment. So if they do come back, you're not rushing into the same dynamic. You're observing, you're listening with clarity. You're looking for evidence, not just words. Are they initiating consistently? Are they curious about your needs this time? Are they showing emotional responsibility, or are they still avoiding hard conversations? And if they don't come back, that's a data point too. Not a reflection of your worth, but a reflection of their capacity. Because here's the truth most people miss. Sometimes the avoidant doesn't return, not because you weren't enough, but because they weren't ready. And if that's the case, the goal isn't to keep proving yourself, it's to release the fantasy and choose reality. Let that reality free you instead of disappoint you. So if you're in the thick of no contact right now, here's what I want you to do. Ground yourself in your routine. Redirect your focus to your healing and visualize the kind of partnership you want to build, not just who you want to build it with. Because when you shift your focus from how do I get them back to how do I get myself back, everything changes. At the end of the day, understanding the avoidant mindset isn't about blaming or labeling. It's about clarity. It's about realizing that someone else's emotional distance doesn't mean you're unworthy of love, and that your healing isn't measured by whether they come back, but by how deeply you come back to yourself. We've talked about why avoidants often return only after you've truly let go, how their emotional timeline unfolds in silence, and, most importantly, how you can use that time to build a secure, grounded version of yourself who no longer chases, but chooses. If there's one thing I want you to walk away with, it's this. You are allowed to expect effort, and you are allowed to stop showing up for someone who keeps you in emotional limbo. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Your attention, your presence, and your healing journey matter. If this video spoke to something inside you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and share where you are in your process. What's been the hardest part? What's shifted for you? I personally read every comment, and your story could help someone else who's silently going through the same thing. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next deep dive. We're building something real here, a space for honest healing, secure connection, and emotional freedom. You're not alone in this. And remember, the right person won't be scared off by your emotional depth. They'll meet you there